Yeah. Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about what is config server and why we need to go for config server. So config server is used to externalize configuration properties of our application. Earlier, we have configured properties within our application. If you configure properties within our application, we need to perform build and deployment process whenever there is a change in the properties file. To make our application loosely coupled from the properties, we are going to use this config server. Our application properties will be available in the Git repository. From this Git repository, config server is going to load those properties. From the config server, our application will load the properties based on the name of the application. Good. Fine. Today, we are going to understand what is Redis cache. We are going to understand what is Redis cache. So here in microservices development, we are going to use this Redis cache to improve performance of our application. So before going to understand what is this Redis, first let's understand what is cache. So any idea what is cache? Any idea what is cache? Cache is nothing but temporary storage. Cache is nothing but temporary storage. So let's take one simple example. So go to our website. In our website, if you see there is a registration page is available, right? So if you want to use this application, then you need to create one account. In order to create the account, there is a sign up page available in our project. In this sign up page, if you see, the country names are coming in the drop down. So all the countries information we are displaying in the drop down when user want to register in our application. This countries information we are getting from database table. All the countries data we have stored in one database table. Whenever user click on this register button, when user click on this register option, then that page is loading. In that page, we are loading all the countries. This countries information is coming from database table. So that means here we have created one method in our application, something like this: public string load register page. In this method, we are taking model object as a parameter and we are returning that view name, that is register page, something like this. Now, in order to load this view page, we are setting countries data in the model object. Model dot add attribute of key, that is countries value service dot get countries. So I have a method in the service layer which will give me list of countries. So this method we are mapping to a get request by using @get mapping / register. So that means in this application, whenever you click on this register option, then this method will be called. What is the logic in this method? We are loading registration page. In order to load this registration page, we are sending countries data in the model object. What is the purpose of a model in the Spring Web MVC? To send the data from controller to UI. Send the data from controller to UI. So here, what we are doing, we are sending the data in the form of key and value. Now, observe, this service layer method is getting the data from the repository. Repository is getting the data from the database table. Okay, first one person clicked on register button. Then one time this method will be called. It will get the countries from the database, will send to the UI. One database call is happened. Again, one more person coming to application, clicking on the same method. Then again, this method will be called, will get the countries data from the database table. Third person will click on the register button. One more time, third time this method will be called. Third time it will get the data from the database table. Now in a day, assume that 10,000 people are registering in my application. 10,000 times this method will be called. When this method is called for 10,000 times, 10,000 times our method will communicate with the database table to get the country's data. So 10,000 times our Java application is going to communicate with the database table, which will take more time to execute our methods. It will decrease performance of our application. And here you need to think logically. If you get the country's data one time from the database, or if you get the country's data 10 times from the database, the data is not going to be different. The data is same. Country's data will not change every day in the database. Okay. When the data is not changing every day, then why we need to get the data from the database for every request? Why should we get the data from the database for every request, which is decreasing performance of our application? So here, in order to resolve this problem, we need to implement cache in our application. So cache means in our application, only one time we need to get the data from the database table. Especially countries data is called static data. In the database, country table is available. That country table will not change every day, will not change for every month also, will not change for every year also, which is a fixed data. When the data is fixed, when the data is static, why to get the data again and again from the database table? Why to get the data again and again from the database table, which is going to reduce performance of our application. So to avoid this problem, we need to go for a concept called cache concept. We need to go for a concept called cache concept. What is the meaning of that cache? We need to get the data only one time from the database. We need to store in our Java application. We need to get the data only one time from the database, and we need to store that data in the Java application from second request onwards. From the second request onwards, we need to use the same data which is available in the Java application instead of getting from the database table. So storing the data in our application to reuse in the future, that is called caching. Caching nothing but any data which you want to use several times. You store it in your application only, then reuse the same data for the future requests. That concept is called cache concept. Why we need to go for this cache concept? Cache is used to improve performance of our application. Are you getting my point? What is the purpose of the cache? Cache is used to store the data for future use. And by using this cache, we are going to improve performance of our application. Are you guys getting my point? Good. So here, how can we do this cache in our application? How can we do this cache in our application? Now, here if you see, I'm taking a class called user controller. Public class, my user controller class is available. Inside this user controller class, I will declare a variable private list of string. Here my countries will be available. I'm taking the countries as one variable. I'm giving as a null value for that. Okay. Now here I'm going to get this countries data from my service method. Service dot get countries available. Here I'm going to store this in the countries variable. Now when this method is executed every time, what is going to happen? When this method is executed, every time it is calling this service method. Every time it is calling service method. Every time it will communicate with the database table to get the country's data. If I get the data every time, data will be different or data will be same. Data will be different or data will be same. Data will be same only. When the data is the same, I will do one condition here. If countries equal to null, if countries equal to null, then only I want to execute this method. If countries is equal to null, then only I want to execute this method. If countries is not null, then I don't want to execute this method. So what is the benefit with this logic now? What is the benefit with this logic now? If I don't write this if condition, then what is the problem? Whenever you click on the register button to load the registration page, every time it will make a DB call. Every time it will get the data from the database. which will reduce performance of our application. To avoid this problem, at the class level, I'm declaring one instance variable. At the class level, I'm declaring one instance variable. Can you tell me when the memory will be allocated for the instance variable? When the memory will be allocated for the instance variable? Memory will be allocated for the instance variable when the object is created. Now, here, this is a controller, nothing but it is a spring bean. How many objects will be created for this spring bean? Only one object will be created for the spring bean. Why only one object will be created for the spring bean? Because it is a singleton. So how many times memory will be allocated for this variable? Only one time memory will be allocated for this variable. Now in this application, instead of calling this method every time, I will write one condition. If country's variable is equal to null value, then only I am going to call this method. Just I am writing one if condition. Okay. When the user first time when they click on the register, first time project is started in the production, first user is trying to register in our application. When they click on the register, this method will be executed. When this method is executing for first time, this value will be null only. If it is a null, then what will happen? Service dot get countries. I am initializing this variable with the countries data. That countries data I am sending to the UI. I will display in the drop down. Now, second user trying to click on the register. When the second user is trying to register, this method will be called second time. When this method is calling for second time, this variable will be null or this variable will not be null. This variable will not be null. Why? Because first time when the user click on that button, method is called, we got the data from the database, we store it in the variable. For the second user, condition will not satisfy because already in the countries variable, data is populated. Same data I will send to the UI. Same data I will send to the UI. So now, if I write this condition, what is the benefit? What is the benefit? If 1 lakh users also register in our application, how many times we are getting this country's data? We are getting this country's data only one time, which is going to improve performance of our application. Always we need to remember, database call is a time-taking process. Database call is a costly operation. As much as possible, we need to reduce database calls in our application by using this cache technique. When we need to reduce the database calls, if the data is static data. So in the database, we will have two types of tables, guys. In the database, we will have two types of tables. One is called transactional tables. First one is called transactional tables. Second one is called non-transactional tables. When we are developing a project, database will be available. In the database, tables will be available. First one is called transactional table. Second one is called non-transactional table. Transactional table, nothing but app will perform DML operations. What is the meaning of DML operations? Data will be changing in those tables. Application will insert the record in the table. Application will update the record in the table. Application will delete the record in the table. Now, transactional table, nothing but application will perform only DQL operation, data query language. What is the meaning of DQL? Only application will retrieve the data. App will perform DQL operations. Okay, if application is performing DML operations on the table, then that table is called as a transactional table. If application is performing only DQL operation, that table is called as a non-transactional table. Non-transactional tables are also called as static tables, like countries data, states data, cities data will be available. That data is a static data. When the data is static, when the table is a non-transactional table, you no need to get the data from the table for every request. Unnecessarily, you are making a database call Unnecessarily you are increasing execution time of the application, which will reduce performance of the application. Okay, as a developer, when you are writing the logic, you need to understand this table is a transactional table or this table is a non-transactional table. If it is a transaction table, every time we have to communicate with the database. There is no option because data will be keep on modifying in the table. Application will keep on inserting the records, updating the records, deleting the records. But if it is a static table, non-transactional table, the data which is there 1 year back, today also same data is available in the database table. When the data is static, we should not query that data again and again from the database. We should not interact with the table again and again to retrieve the same data. So to reduce the number of DB calls, we are going to keep this one condition. So when the first time user is trying to log in, the data will be available in the countries in this variable. When the user trying to register, second user, when this method is called for the second time, this method will not be called because countries data is already available. Same data we will send to the UI page. What is the benefit with this logic now? A small change in the code will create a big impact in the application. A small if condition will make a big impact in the application execution time. So this kind of technique is called caching. This kind of technique is called caching. Whatever the data I need to use again and again, I'm storing into one variable and I am reusing the same variable again and again. This concept is called cache. This concept is called cache. This cache is a temporary storage. If my application is restarted, this variable will become null value. Getting my point? If the application is started, when the first request is executed for the registration, variable will contain the data. If my application is restarted, variable will become null value. This is called temporary storage. This is called temporary storage. This temporary storage is called cache. It is called cache. What is the meaning of that cache? Why we need to go for that cache here? Why we need to go for the cache here? Come on, guys. Why we need to go for the cache? If you want to reuse the data again and again, if you want to reuse the data again and again, then we are going for cache. What is the benefit with the cache? What is the benefit we are going to get with the cache? The benefit we are getting with the cache is performance improvement. We are not retrieving the data again and again from the table. We are retrieving the data only one time and we are storing into a variable. We are reusing the same variable for the all the other user registration process. Are you getting my point? Now, here this cache is available in my class. Nothing but it is available in one application. In this application, I can use this cache data. Suppose, for example, the same country's data is required for multiple microservices. In my project, there are 10 microservices available. For 10 microservices, same table data is required, which is a static table. There is a static table in my project that a table data is required for 10 microservices. If your application is monolithic application, all the functionality will be available in the single project. All the functionality is there in the single project. So if you get the data for one time, if you store into one variable, you can use the same data in all the classes in your project. In all the classes in your project. But currently, we are developing our application by using microservices architecture. What is the meaning of microservices architecture? Multiple services will be available. Every service is independently deployable and independently executable. My project is developed by using microservice. Okay, so this is my API 1, nothing but first backend API. Now here second backend API, third backend API is available. Assume that I'm taking 3 microservices now. I'm taking 3 microservices. These 3 microservices are communicating with the database. There is one database is available. In this database, there is one static table is available. Now API 1 want to get the data from that static table. API 2 want to get the data from the static table. API 3 want to get the data from the static table. So how many times we need to get the data? One time or three times now? Three times. API 1 needs that table data. API 2 needs that table data. API 3 also needs that table data. So that means we need to get that data from the database table. We need to store in the application 1. We need to store in the application 2. We need to store in the application 3. At three places, my data is available because earlier there was only one project with all the functionalities. Now there are three projects available. These three projects are called as three microservices. Three projects are called as three microservices. Now, if there are three microservices at three places, my cache data will be available. Suppose if I have 20 microservices, then 20 microservices needs data from the same table, which is a static table. Then what is the problem? At 20 places we need to maintain the cache. At 20 places we need to maintain the cache data. So this is recommended or not recommended? Not recommended. That means if you have monolithic application, one cache will be available because all the classes, all the functionalities will be available in one project. Cache also will be available at only one place. But today, what is trending in the market? Microservices. What is the meaning of microservices? What is the meaning of microservices? Multiple small services will be available. Every service is a separate project. Every service will be deployed independently. Every service will be executing in the separate server. So when you have these kind of microservices, creating the cache in all the microservices is not recommended. So that's why we need one distributed cache. What we need, guys? We need one distributed cache. So this here, I will create earlier. I have created a cache data within my application. Earlier, I have created the cache data within our application. When we can create the cache within our application, if it is a monolithic application. What is the meaning of monolithic application? What is the meaning of monolithic application? One project, everything available in one project, all the functionalities available in single application, all the classes, all the methods available in one project. If everything is available in one project, cache also will be available at one place, so that entire project can use that cache data. But now when you go for the microservices, multiple APIs are available. Every API is independent. Every API is executing in the separate server. When multiple APIs want to use same cache data, cache should be available outside of the APIs. Then only all the APIs can reuse that. This kind of cache is called as distributed cache. What is this cache, guys? This cache is called as distributed cache. Distributed cache nothing but it is available outside of our applications. It is available outside of our microservices. When this cache is available outside of our microservices, then this API can get the data from the cache. This API can get the data from the cache. This API can get the data from the cache. Are you getting my point? So the cache which is available outside of the application is called distributed cache. This distributed cache we are going to set up by using Redis. Redis is a server which is used to set up distributed cache required for the application. Now whatever the data is available in the database data we can store into Redis server. Our applications are going to get the data from Redis server. Instead of getting the data from the database every time, database data will be available in the Redis cache. Our microservices will connect with the Redis server and will get the data from the Redis server. Getting data from the database is a costly operation. When we compare database call and Redis call execution will be faster than the database call. So that's why in the real time, when we are working with microservices architecture, Redis cache concept will be available. What is the benefit of going for that Redis cache? The benefit of going for the Redis cache is distributed caching. What is the meaning of distributed caching? What is the meaning of normal cache and distributed cache? What is the meaning of normal cache and distributed cache, guys? Come on. Normal cache means specific to one application. Distributed cache means multiple applications can connect to the Redis server and can get the data. In the Redis server, we are going to maintain the data in the form of key and value pair, guys. Redis server will maintain the data in the form of key and value pair. Redis will maintain the data in the form of key and value pair. For example, country name will be available, book ID, book name will be available, student ID, student name will be available. So Redis is a data store. How we will maintain the data in the database? In the table format. In the Redis, data will be maintained in the form of key and value. So Redis cache will be available within our APIs, or it will be available outside of our APIs. Outside of our APIs. So we have 20 microservices in our project. So out of these 20, 10 microservices want to use the static data, cache data. Those 10 microservices will connect with the Redis server. Are you able to follow this? Now, so look at this. What is cache? So first of all, we need to understand that in every application, two types of tables will be available. What are those two types of tables, guys? One is called transactional table. Second one is called non-transactional table. First one is called transactional table. Second one is called non-transactional table. What is the meaning of transactional table? What is the meaning of transactional table? If the table is transactional, that means our application will perform DML operations on the table. What is the meaning of that? Application will modify the data in the table. Nothing but it is going to create the records, update the records, and delete the records. Then we have non-transactional table. What is the meaning of non-transactional table? Only application will retrieve the data from the table, which is called as a static table. When the data is a static, when the table is static, there is no use of retrieving data from that table again and again. When table is static, there is no use of retrieving data from the table again and again. So for static table data, we need to maintain cache. For static tables data, we should use cache. When you are having static tables in our application, we should use cache for that table. What is the meaning of cache? Cache means temporary storage. So get the static table data, only once and store it in a variable and reuse that variable for future requests. What is my point? So when table is static, there is no use of getting the data from the table again and again. When static table is available, we should implement cache concept for that table. What is the meaning of cache concept? Get the data only one time, use it, store that data in a variable. For the future requests, use the existing data instead of getting the data again and again. Okay. Now, so example, if you see here, countries data example. Countries static. Countries are not going to change. So here, instead of getting the countries data for every request, I'm getting the countries data only one time and I'm storing into a variable. For the second request, If a countries is null, then only I'm going to get this data. If a country's data is not null, then I will not get from the database. I will reuse the existing data only. What is the benefit we are going to get with this logic, guys? The advantage with the above logic is countries we will fetch only once from database. The advantage with above logic is countries we will fetch only once from database. For the second request, we are going to reuse same countries we have already in the variable. So do you need to think about that? Maybe tomorrow new country name will come. Is that possibility is there? No. That's why no need to get the data from the database again and again. So here this concept is called cache concept. So this cache is called as a local cache. Why we are calling this cache as a local cache? It is available only within our application. Only this application can reuse this country's data. If it is a monolithic application, this is okay. But today projects are developing by using microservices architecture. What is the meaning of microservices architecture? What is the meaning of microservices architecture? Functionalities are not in the single project. All the classes are not available in the single project. We are developing multiple APIs for loosely coupling. Every microservice is independently deployable. Every microservice is independently executable. Independently deployable, independently executable. Now, all these microservices are communicating with one database. In that database, there is a static table. All these microservices want to use that static data for their functionality. So when all these microservices want to use the same data, we need to set up the cache in every API. Here cache should be available. Here cache should be available. Here cache should be available. If you have 2 APIs, 3 APIs, that is okay. If you have 20, 30 APIs in your application, then 20, 30 places we need to implement the cache, which is not recommended. To avoid this problem, what we need to do? We need to go for distributed cache. What is the meaning of that distributed cache? What is the meaning of distributed cache? Come on. What is the meaning of distributed cache? Cache should be available outside of our APIs. All the APIs will connect to the distributed cache and will fetch the data from the distributed cache. How do we set up distributed cache for our microservices application? There is a server available. What is that server? Redis server. Redis server is available. By using this Redis server, we can set up distributed cache. Whatever the static table is available in the database, that static table data we are going to store in the Redis server. Our APIs are going to act as Redis clients. Redis server will be available. In that server, we are going to store the data in the form of key and value. Redis is a data store. Redis is a data store like a database. In the database, data will be available in the form of tables. Okay, tables, rows will be available, columns will be available. In the Redis, data will be available in the form of key and value. Now, our microservices are going to act as clients for the Redis server. What is the meaning of client? Our API will connect with the Redis server, will get the data from the Redis server. Now, if you see our microservices architecture, our API is acting as a client for Eureka, acting as a client for admin, acting as client for Zipkin, acting as a client for config server, acting as a client for Redis server also. Now tell me, what is Redis? Why we need to go for Redis? What is Redis? Why we need to go for Redis? Redis is a cache server. Redis is a server which is used to implement cache in our application. So Redis is used for local cache. Redis is used for distributed cache. Distributed cache. What is the meaning of distributed cache? It is available outside of our APIs. All our APIs can connect with the Redis server, can get the data from the Redis server. Now, Let's go to official website of the Redis. Okay, go to Redis official website. Check this. There is a website called redis.io website is available. Can you read this one? Can you read this one? Redis is an open source in-memory data structure store used as a database. You can use Redis as a database also. You can use Redis as a cache also. You can use Redis as a message broker also. Now, click on this website. Yes. Can you read this one? The open source in-memory data store used by millions of developers as a cache, vector database, document database, streaming engine, and message broker. So millions of developers are using Redis as a cache, that is a distributed cache. Now, so see here, vibrant open source database, 4 billion Docker pulls available. Nothing but yesterday in the JRTP we have seen Sonar server. How we started Sonar server? How we started Sonar server? By using Docker. So similarly, can we start Redis also by using Docker? Yes, we can start Redis also by using Docker. How many people downloaded Redis by using Docker? 4 billion people. And how many GitHub stars? How many languages it is supporting? 50 plus programming languages. Redis is not only for the Java, other programming languages also using Redis as a distributed cache. What are the core capabilities of the Redis server? In-memory data structure, programmability is available, extensibility, persistence is available, cluster is available, high availability is available. Okay, and what are the use cases? You can use this to store the real-time data. You can use this as a cache. You can use it for the streaming the data also. Redis stack is available. So here Spring can communicate with the Redis. JavaScript, Node.js can communicate with the Redis. .NET can communicate with the Redis. Python can communicate with the Redis. It is not only for one programming language. Redis is supporting for 50 plus programming languages. Scroll down. Redis use cases available. Get started. Install and launch Redis. Learn the Redis CLI. Okay. Now install and launch Redis. Install the Redis on the Linux, Mac OS, and Windows also. Install Redis on the Linux. Install the Redis on the Windows. So click on install Redis on the Windows. Now connect to Redis Windows. If you want to download the Redis on the Windows, can you guys read this one? What they are saying? Redis is not officially supported on the Windows. However, you can install Redis on the Windows for development by following the instructions below. To install the Redis on the Windows, first you need to enable Windows subsystem for Linux. Lets you run Linux binaries natively on the Windows. For this method to work, you need to be running Windows 10 version and higher versions. Install or enable WSL2. Microsoft provides instructions for WSL. Once you have installed this, the Linux libraries will be available. What they are saying is you need to enable virtualization on the Windows. That means in the Windows machine, you need to enable Linux operating system. Then you can run the Redis on the Linux machine. Okay. So officially, you can't run the Redis on the Windows platform. So you need to enable virtualization in your Windows machine. What is the meaning of virtualization? In one operating system, we need to run another operating system. That concept is called virtualization. So once you enable virtualization, you can run two operating systems in one computer. So one operating system is called host operating system. Another operating system is called guest operating system. How do we work with that? host operating system and guest operating system. So with this, what is the conclusion? In the real time, for everything, Linux will be used. Okay, so here currently we are using Windows machine, guys. We are having one machine. In our machine, by default, Windows OS we are installing. Okay, Windows OS is available in our machine. That is main operating system in our machine. This is my machine. In this machine, Windows operating system is available. This Windows operating system is main operating system in our machine. The main operating system we have in our machine, this operating system is called as host operating system. Nothing but main operating system we are using in our computer. We are using in our computer, host operating system. So in this Windows, can we run the Redis directly? Can we run the Redis directly on the Windows? You can't run the Redis directly on the Windows. Then what we need to do? We need to install Linux. We need to install Linux operating system in our computer. This Linux operating system we are installing in our computer. This is called as guest operating system. Okay. In one operating system, we are going to run another operating system that is called guest operating system. If you want to install guest operating system in our host operating system, you need to enable virtualization in our computer. You need to enable virtualization in our computer. Once Linux is installed as a guest operating system, in this Linux, we are going to set up our Redis server. Okay. That is what they are saying in the documentation. So you can use Redis, but directly you can't run on the Windows. If you have a Windows machine, if you want to run the Redis on that machine, then what you need to do? You need to enable virtualization. Then you need to install Linux OS. Once you install the Linux OS, on top of that Linux OS, you can install Redis server. Okay. So in the real time, people will follow this process or will not follow this process? Will not follow. What they will do? Directly they are going to take a Linux machine. In that Linux machine, our Redis server will be available. Now, in the yesterday's GRTP session, SonarQube setup I have done. Where is that SonarQube? Linux machine. My application available in the Windows machine. My application is communicating with the Sonar server available in the Linux machine. In the real time, for Redis also, same process will be available. Redis server will be available in the Linux machine. Our application is available in the Windows machine, should connect with the Redis server. Okay, so this you can try for practice, but in the real time, we don't use this concept. In the real time, Redis server will be installed directly on the Linux machine. Are you guys able to follow this? Good. Fine. Read this documentation now. First of all, go to Redis official website. What they are saying about the Redis? Open source, in-memory data store used by millions of developers. Get started with the Redis. Documentation is available for the Redis. Now, so million developers are using and 4 billion people already downloaded the Redis by using Docker. 50 plus programming languages are supporting for this Redis. What are the core capabilities of the Redis? In-memory data store, extensibility, okay, high availability will be available. What are the use cases of the Redis is there? Redis stack is available. Now, if you want to install the Redis, install and launch the Redis, go here. So while you can install Redis on the platform listed below, you might also consider using Redis Cloud by creating a free account. There is another facility is also available. What is that? You no need to install the Redis in any machine. Directly it is available in the cloud. You can use Redis which is available in the cloud also. So there are two ways that you can use Redis. One is download the Redis, install the Redis in your machine. If you download and install Redis on your machine, that is called on-premises Redis server, on-prem server. People will call it as on-prem server. On-prem server nothing but we will download the software, we will install the software, we will manage that software on our own. That is called on-prem infrastructure. Today in the market, on-prem infrastructure is less. People are going for cloud infrastructure. Why people are going for cloud infrastructure? Why people are going for cloud infrastructure? What is the benefit? If I go for on-prem infrastructure, I will download the Redis, I will install the Redis. If my machine is crashed, server is gone, data is gone. If it is a cloud, do we need to manage the machine? Do we need to manage the server? Who will manage? That Redis company only is going to manage the server. Always cloud infrastructure is safe. Cloud infrastructure is safe because somebody will manage our infrastructure. That's where people are using cloud computing in the projects. AWS cloud, Azure cloud, GCP cloud is available. Why? What is the benefit we are getting with that cloud infrastructure? They will take care of our servers. They will take care of our servers, right? So here you can try Redis by installing on your machine, or you can try Redis by using from cloud platform also. Install Redis on the Linux. If you want to install Redis on the Linux, what is the procedure? If you execute these commands, then Redis will be installed on the Linux machine. If you want to install Redis on the Windows machine, what they are saying here? First you need to enable WSL. What is this WSL? Install WSL by using PowerShell. Once you install the WSL by using PowerShell, you need to install Linux distribution. Once Linux distribution is installed, then you need to install the Redis by using that Linux. Okay, so that is little bit difficult process. What is the easiest option? You can go with Redis in the Linux machine, or you can go with the Redis by using Docker. Install the Redis by using Linux, or install the Redis by using Docker. Good, fine. Redis, install this Redis. Redis CLI, use Redis from your application. Clients you can see, Java client is available. If you want to use Redis in the Java application, what they are saying? Maven dependency is available. How do you connect with the Redis? How do we connect with the Redis? Redis dependency we need to use. Using that Redis dependency, you can store the data into Redis server like this, and you can get the data from the Redis server. That means how your Java application should communicate with the Redis server. They have given the sample logic also. In order to develop Java application which is responsible to communicate with the Redis server. If anybody using Python, for the Python, they have given the logic how Python application should communicate with the Redis server, how to store the data in the Redis, how to get the data from the Redis. So the logic, the sample logic that we need to develop, that logic also they have given as part of the documentation. So now what we do is, if you want to develop this Redis application, now assume that here our Redis server will be available. So it may be a cloud Redis server, or it may be on-prem Redis server. Cloud Redis server nothing but they will provide the Redis server for us in the cloud. You no need to install that. If you want to go for on-premises Redis server, you need to download and install that Redis server in one Linux machine. Once we have done this, we are going to create one application. This is our Java application. This is our Java application. This Java application can be a normal Java application. It can be a Spring Boot application also. You can use a normal Java application or you can use Spring Boot application also. If you are using Spring Boot application, Spring Boot is having direct support to communicate with the Redis server. When we are using this Spring Boot application to communicate with the Redis server, there is a class available, guys, that is called Redis Connection Factory. There is a class available, that is Redis Connection Factory class is available. What is this Redis Connection Factory class? Redis Connection Factory class is responsible to establish connection with the Redis server. In the JDBC, driver will be available to communicate with the database. Database will be available in one machine. Java application will be available in another machine. How this Java application will communicate with the database? By using driver. Database driver will be available. Now similarly, Redis server will be available in one machine. Our Java application is available in another machine. From this Java application, we should communicate with the Redis server. To establish connection with the Redis server, they provided one class. What is that class name? Redis Connection Factory. That Redis Connection Factory class is going to establish connection between Java application and Redis server. Once we have this Redis Connection Factory, then connection can be established with the Redis server. Once that connection is established, here there is another class is available which is called Redis template. What is the class available, guys? Redis template class is available. How we have REST template, JDBC template, Hibernate template. Similarly, there is a class called Redis template class available in the Spring Boot. By using this Redis template, class, you can set the data to the Redis server in the form of key comma value. You can get the data from the Redis server by using its key. Set method is available, get method is available. What is the meaning of a set method? What is the meaning of set method? Set method is used to store the data in the Redis server. Get method is used to get the data from the Redis server. All right. So like this, we can set up a Redis server. Once this Redis server is available, multiple microservices, I mean to say all these microservices are going to communicate with the Redis server. So to communicate with the Redis server, some configuration is required. That is, Redis Connection Factory class will be available, which will establish connection with the Redis server. Once a connection is established with the Redis server, in order to perform operations with the Redis server, there is a predefined class available in the Spring Boot. What is that class? Redis template class is available. What is the purpose of that Redis template class? What is the purpose of Redis template class? That Redis template class is used to communicate with the Redis server. What kind of operations we can do? We can perform CRUD operations on the Redis. You can store the data, update the data, delete the data, and retrieve the data also by using this Redis template. So how the Redis will maintain the data here? Key and value will be available. Redis server is going to act as a in-memory database, or we can call it as a data store. We can call it as a cache server. It is going to maintain the data in the form of key and value pair. Now, our application can communicate with the Redis server by using Redis Connection Factory. Then our application can perform. Our application can perform operations with the Redis server. It can store the data, it can get the data, update the data, and delete the data also. Good. So what is the conclusion now? So you got the clarity. What is a cache? Why we need to go for the cache? What is local cache? What is distributed cache? And what is Redis? And how we need to work with the Redis. Now can I say all these APIs will act as Redis clients? All these APIs are going to act as, if your application having a requirement for the distributed cache, then Redis cache will be available. Nowadays in the microservices projects, Redis, Kafka, Docker are very common. In every microservices projects in the real time, using Redis server, using Kafka server, using Docker for the deployment became very common. So tomorrow when you attend the interview also, they will ask questions on this one. Do you have any experience on the Apache Kafka? Do you have any experience on the Redis cache? Do you have experience on the Docker? So this knowledge is very important. Good. So any questions as of now? Anybody having any questions as of now? As of now, we understood what is cache, what is Redis theoretically. Theoretically, we understood what is cache, what is Redis. We need to do the practicals. Practicals in the sense, we need to set up a Redis server. We need to develop a microservice. Our microservice should be able to communicate with the Redis server. So you got the clarity. What is Redis? Why to go for Redis? That is the agenda for today. So in the initial days, when I have taken this diagram for the microservices, many people told that, sir, we are not able to understand what is Redis. So today is the session for that. What is Redis? Why to go for Redis? How to work with Redis? That is tomorrow's topic. Got it? How to use the cloud Redis? We can use that. You can create one. Try Redis cloud option is available. You need to create one free tier account in the Redis. You need to create one account in the Redis. Once you create account in the Redis, they will provide the URLs to work with the cloud Redis. You can today, you have option to explore how to set up Redis in the Windows, how to set up Redis in the cloud, how to set up Redis on the Linux machine. You have option to try on your own. Tomorrow, I'm going to explain in the class how we are going to set up the Redis. Okay, with the cloud Redis, I did not work as of now. Today, I will also see how can we set up Redis in the cloud. How can we integrate that with our application? Easiest approach. Or else we will go with the Docker to set up the Redis in the Linux machine. Anything we can do. So if possible, I will show you both options. Good. Offline students, any questions? Sir, which one is better? That depends upon your company. So some companies are going to use on-premises Redis. That means they will download and set up in their computers. Some companies will go for cloud Redis. It depends on budget. When you are going for the cloud Redis, we need to do some payments for managing the servers. They will manage our servers, right? We have to pay the money for that. If you go for on-premises, you no need to pay the money, but you need to manage that. Okay. Auto routing. What is auto routing? I don't know. Okay, good. Any questions, anyone, from today's discussion on the cache? Anybody having any questions on the today's discussion? What is cache? Why we need to go for cache? What are the benefits we are getting with the cache? What is local cache and what is distributed cache? So here we are going for Redis cache. Redis is a open source data store which we can use as a database, as a cache. We can use as a message broker also. It is an open source data store. We can use Redis as database. We can use Redis as a database. We can use as a cache. We can use Redis as a message broker. Okay. Redis is supporting for 50 plus programming languages. It's not only for the Java. Redis is supporting for 50 plus programming languages. We can set up Redis in two ways. We can set up Redis in two ways. One is by using on-prem Redis, on-prem setup. On-prem setup. That means you take a Windows machine or you take a Linux machine and you can do that. Cloud Redis, Redis cloud also. If you go for Redis cloud, what is the meaning of that? You don't need to install anything. Directly in the cloud, in the Redis cloud, you can create one account. Then you can set up the Redis server in the cloud account. Then your application can communicate with that Redis cloud server directly. So they will manage our Redis server. If you go for on-prem setup, then we need to download and install Redis server in one machine, and our application should connect with that Redis server available on that machine. Okay, you can install in your machine, Windows machine. If you go for the Windows machine, what is the problem? Direct support is available, direct support is not available. For the Windows machine, direct support is not available. You need to set up Linux distribution on the Windows machine. Then only you can set up the Redis. If you have knowledge on the Linux, directly you can do that. If you don't want to set up, then you can try with the cloud. I will try to show you both options, how to work with on-prem Redis as well as cloud Redis also. Good. So today, you just explore. You can search in the Google how to set up Redis on the Windows, how to set up Redis on the cloud, how to develop a Spring Boot application to communicate with the Redis server. Before I'm going to explain, if you try to do it on your own, self-confidence will be increased, because tomorrow in the company, nobody will help you to do these kind of works. Suppose if you are new to Redis, directly you got a task, work with the Redis server in the project. Can you say to your manager, I don't know Redis? Can you say to your manager, I don't know Redis? No. What do you need to do? You need to do the R&D and you need to work on. So when I joined in the company, I don't know Redis, but in the company, I got a task that we need to implement a Redis server in our project. So I need to do research and development. I have gone through several websites in the Google. I have understood what is that Redis, how to set up, how to communicate with the Redis server by using Java. That is self-learning. For the developers, self-learning capability should be there. Any topic. So that means here in the course, you will not learn each and everything in the Java. You will learn some concepts which are required to get the job. Once you enter into the project, based on the task, you need to learn. That means every day you need to act as a student in the company. You need to learn the things according to the project requirement, and you need to implement those things in the project. So research and development is very, very important. Self-learning is very, very, very important. Good. So you have time today. You do some research on the Redis setup, boot application development by using Redis server. Good. Yeah. Online students, any questions, anyone? You can unmute and you can ask me.
Good
Can
morning,
we
sir.
check lifespan for the cache?
Sorry?
Lifespan for the cache.
You can
Can we
set, sir. Whenever you are storing the data in the Redis server, you can set that lifespan for the cache. That means, do you want to refresh the Redis cache for every 1 week or for every 1 hour? So you can do that. You can do the scheduling also, so that the cache data will be refreshed.
Okay.
Sir, in which
Sir,
format
are you
cache
going to show
is
that?
there, sir?
Sorry?
In which format cache is there, like JSON or normal text format?
That is their internal side. Text format they will store, key and value pair.
Okay, sir. That
We can't see that in which format,
uh,
what is their backend algorithm to store the data, that we don't know, right? For us,
yes,
it is just key value pair.
okay, sir. That anyone can access, like Java, Python.
Yes,
Any
right.
any
Yeah,
technology?
50 languages support is available. So now, once the data is available in the Redis, my microservices are there. So as we discussed, is there any rule that all the microservices should be developed by using same language? No. One microservice in the Java, another microservice in the Python. These two microservices can access the data from the cache, Redis cache. Yes. Java project can communicate with the Redis. Python project also can communicate with the Redis. So these two APIs developed by two different languages can communicate with the Redis. So here Java client will be available for the Redis. Python client will be available for the Redis.
Hi, sir. This is Srinivas. Suppose we have 3 APIs, sir. Each API have different static data. So when I'm sending request to Redis, how would know which API requesting this kind of data? How you know?
So that Redis will not maintain that data. You need to maintain that data by using your logs. Which API is sending the request to Redis? Logs will be available for our application. We need to do the logging. Call is going to Redis server or not. Redis will not maintain that.
Okay, because it's common for 3 apps for the distributed cache maintenance for the Redis.
Yes.
So in this scenario, how it will know the which static that is asking for the which API?
So that you will store the data in the cache, you will get the data from the cache. Why you need to know that? Which API is asking, which API is not asking. When your API requires, then only it will connect with that and it will get that. Now you have a database. So how do you know that which method is retrieving the data from which table? Are you getting my point?
Yes,
You
sir.
have a database table, 10 tables are available. In our project, 10 classes available. How do you know that which class is getting the data from which table? That you need to log. Logs you need to implement.
Sure.
Sir, is there any separate language is there to operate with Redis or
Sir,
like SQL or anything?
language is available. Redis CLI is available. Now, Redis CLI is used to communicate with the Redis server. So if you want to communicate with the Redis without any project, then Redis CLI language will be available. Like our SQL, Redis also having its own CLI language. But when we are communicating with Java, Python, Java related methods will be available. Those methods will communicate with the Redis server. Now, how database is having a SQL language, Redis also will have its own CLI syntaxes.
That CLI syntax we'll use it in Java or
No,
we
it is
don't
just to communicate with the server directly without Java.
with Java we will use it using normally
Normal Java methods are there, sir. Set method, get method. Set
Okay,
is
thanks.
used to set the data, get is used to get the data.
Got it, thanks.
So in real-time projects,
Mhm.
in real-time scenario,
Mhm.
people are talking like Redis cache is very expensive. Can you explain what is the word this says? Because in my previous project, they discussed these words, but we never used. But why they said it's expensive? As we discussed a while ago here, it's open source.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Expensive means maybe they are talking about the network call, not related to the money.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Good, guys. So today I want all of you to do some research on the Redis. Try to set up the Redis and try to develop a boot application with Redis. Self-learning, try to do it. You have 24 hours of time to develop a small Spring Boot application to communicate with the Redis server. Try to do it. If you are able to do, that means self-learning skills are improving. If you are not able to do, tomorrow you will see what mistakes you have done. I will explain that topic in the tomorrow session. How to set up Redis, how to communicate with the Redis server by using our Spring Boot application. Thank you. We'll meet in the tomorrow session.